This is Unit 3C Notes. I will be working through it this time, and the 3C notes are not too hard to do. A lot of this is based on using your calculator, so you are going to have your calculator. You will need to just pause when I'm going through this to make sure you can get the correct answers on your calculator. If you are struggling with a calculator, please email me and I can try to set up a little meeting, Zoom meeting, and we can discuss it. But Unit 3C is not a really bad one again, just lots and lots of calculators. We'll start off with the vocabulary. For any real numbers A and B, A minus B is the same as A plus negative B. I will sometimes say I will go back and forth, but these are identical. So if I have 5 minus 3, which is equal to 2, is the same as 5 plus a negative 3. And that's also 2. So they really just get the same things. When we multiply two negative numbers, the product will always be positive. In addition, this is exact opposite. If I were to do negative 5 plus negative 3, that is still negative. But negative 5 times negative 3 will always be positive. If we multiply one positive number by one negative number, the product is always negative. Terms such as 5x and negative 4x, whose variable factors are exactly the same, are called like terms. Okay? So as long as they have the exact same letters in them, they will be considered like terms. Now 5x and negative 4x, those are just like terms, and we could add them up, etc. If we had 4x plus 3y, that is definitely not like terms, so I could not add them together. This is not equal to 7xy. You cannot combine these two things. That's all you can do is just 4x plus 3y. Now, here's starting some of the problems. This is literally, all these questions right here are just type in your calculator. I am just going to write down the answers for these. Please make sure you can get these correct when you type on your calculator. So again, please just type in your calculator, pause this, make sure you can get them. All right, so if the temperature is now 28.5 degrees Fahrenheit and it drops 36 degrees Fahrenheit by tomorrow morning, what is the temperature tomorrow morning? Well, if we had a simpler question, if it was 70 degrees out, it dropped 5 degrees, the new temperature would be 65 degrees. All you're doing is subtracting. This time, though, 28.5 minus 36 will give us a negative number. So it is negative 7.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse me. The next couple questions are, again, just typing on your calculator. And again, I will just write down the answers. Please type this into your calculator and make sure you get the right answer. During a chemical reaction, the temperature of a solution in a beaker decreased every minute by the same number of degrees. The temperature was at 71 degrees Fahrenheit at 2:12. By 2:37, the temperature had dropped to negative 4 degrees. How many degrees did it change each minute? Well, first of all, how many degrees did it change overall? If we went from 70 degrees down to 60 degrees, that's a 10-degree change, isn't it? So I have to subtract these two numbers. We're starting at 71 degrees, and we're subtracting negative 4. So when I type this out, this is really a 75-degree change. If I want to find out how many change each minute, well, how many minutes occurred? We went from 2:12 to 2:37, so this is 25 minutes. So if we wanted how many degrees did it change per minute, So really I'm doing degrees per minute. So it changed 75 degrees for 25 minutes, which reduces to 3 degrees per minute. All right, these next questions, we're just going to be evaluating. So all I'm going to do is put in the values. Now, I see an error. This should be x's here, not b's, because the equation is 2x squared. Sorry for that poor note there. But when I put it in, it's going to be 2 times 3 squared. So, and the calculator again will do this. So I have to do 3 squared for it, so that's 9. 2 times 9 is 18. But when I do the negative 3, I actually get the same answer, because I have to do negative 3 squared first, which is positive 9. 2 times 9 is 18. Number 6. Now this is a review of Unit 2. We're going to be doing percentages. They will throw these in occasionally. When I look at the percent change here, what I have to do is, if you remember, I do the change divided by the original amount. So, to find the change, I went from 220, well actually I went from 76 to 220. So to find the change, I have to subtract. When I do 220 minus 76, I get 144. I put it over where the amount I started. Well, I started at 76 million, so I put it over 76. Then I let the calculator do this for me, and I get 1.894736. Now, how do I change the number to a percent again? If you remember correctly from Unit 2, we have to times it by 100. So now it's 189.4736. Now let's say it says round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Round, I'll put this extra in here, to the nearest tenth of a percent. So to remind our rounding, here's the nearest tenth. There's a 7 next to it, so this is 189.5%. Now if I said the nearest hundredth, then 7 would be it, so it would be 189.47%. But since I made up my directions at the last second, that's going to be the correct answer. The price of a company began the day at $23.45 per share and dropped by $1.13 per hour for 5 hours. What was the price of the stock after 5 hours? Well, if it dropped $1.13 per hour for 5 hours, that would be $1.13 times 5, because that's how much it dropped. Now, multiply that, you get $5.65. So that's how much it dropped. If it started at $23.45, then I would just take away the $5.65, and I would get $17.80. So that was the new stock price after the falling of the stock. This next section is kind of a weird section. We're just talking about the commutative property and associative property. This is where we're just trying to rewrite things that are equal to each other. A plus B is equal to B plus A. So in other words, if I have 3 plus 2, that's the same as 2 plus 3. Notice in addition, we can rewrite it without having any problems, but subtraction is not commutative. 2 minus 3 is not the same as 3 minus 2. So addition is very forgiving when we write things in the wrong order. If you remember when we were translating in the last section from English to algebra, subtraction order mattered, addition does not. Multiplication is very similar. A times B is the same as B times A. Again, division is not commutative. Now the associative property, well, first of all, commutative property is we're just reversing things. We're just writing them in different order. Associative is we're always using parentheses to regroup things. Because if you really notice, this a plus b plus c is equal to a plus b plus c, we're just putting parentheses around different things. And the same thing over here. We're having a times b in parentheses. Here we have b times c. So all we're doing is moving the parentheses. So the first one is commutative. Really, we have no parentheses, so all we can do is commutative. Now, if I rewrite commutative, that means I just reverse it, so it's y times x. Now, associative laws in this one, this is the one with parentheses because there are parentheses. So what I need to do is I just need to regroup. So I'm just going to put b plus a in parentheses plus 83. Now, that is only using associative laws. If I were to use commutative, then I could reverse some of these things and do a whole lot of other different things. They have some questions in the homework where you have to use both at the same time. All right. This next section, we're just distributing. Normally what we do is we always do think, whoops, sorry about that, wiping a piece of dust off. I'm using the distributive property because I really am supposed to do what's inside the parentheses first, but I can't do y minus 2. So I have to distribute the 20 to each one of these. 20 times y is just 20y. 20 times negative 2 is minus 40. The dust got in my mouth. All right, so now my next one here, I'm going to distribute a negative 2 to all three terms here. Negative 2x. Negative 2 times y is minus 2y. Now, negative 2 times negative 4. Negative times a negative is always a positive, so it's positive 8. So now this time I have to distribute a negative 3/5 to each one of these. Negative 3/5 times x is negative 3/5 x. And negative times a negative is a positive 3/5 y. Now negative 3/5 times positive 15. So it's a negative times a positive, which is a negative, and then it's minus 9. Now, none of these, in all three of these, none of them have any like terms to combine. So these are my answers. Now, this next part here is the exact opposite of these last two things here that we were doing here. Here, I was distributing the 20. Now, this time, I want to find the common factor and factor it out. Now, 4 and 2 are both divisible by 4. Oops. To erase that. So now, if 2 is the greatest common factor, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 2 then parentheses. But what I'm really doing is I'm dividing each one of these by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is canceled, so it's just 2 plus x. So if I were to redistribute the 2, I would just come back with the original answer. They have a couple of these questions. They don't do a lot of this, but they definitely want you to start getting the idea of factoring out a common factor. Here we have 4x and 12. 4 is the greatest common factor, so I'm going to do 4 parentheses, and so I'm going to divide each one by 4. 4 divided by 4 cancels, so that's just x. 12 divided by 4 is minus 3. So I have factored it out. That's all they want to do with this. Okay. Now we're going to start combining some like terms. Whenever you do this, the variable never changes. We just add the coefficients. 3 and 8 are the coefficients on the variable of letter x. So 3 plus 8 is just 11x, and that's all we do. Now, mathematicians love to do this, and it does get confusing here. This is 7y minus y. There's no coefficient on that y, but we do know it's a 1y. So 7y minus 1y is 6y. But they will not write that 1 all the time, and people will forget about it sometimes. So you got to be careful. That 7y minus 1y is 6y. And they unfortunately love to use letters like P and Q together. I just wanted to show you one of these because these all three are not the same. 6p minus 4p, those are the like terms. 6p minus 4p is 2p. Then the 7q has no other q, so it just stays a q. Just be careful on your p's and q's. Yes, they're trying to trick us. They like doing that. Okay. Let's identify our like terms here. I've got negative 1/2 x here and negative 1/3 x here. So this is really negative 1/2 minus 1/3, which is equal to negative 5/6. And so then I just put the x because I'm combining those two. Now my y's, I have 3/5 y minus 2/5 y. They're like terms. 3/5 minus 2/5 is 1/5 y. So this is really plus 1/5 y. We're just combining our like terms, and that's all we're doing. Very simple. Now these next two are going to be very similar to when we were just talking about when we did the 7y minus y. There's an invisible 1 here. When we just have the negative written outside here, it's really negative 1 times x plus 4. So I have to distribute a negative 1 to each one, so it's really negative 1x minus 4. Now the 1 is usually not written, so most of the time you will see it written negative x minus 4. Most of the time the computer will not mark you off for that, but just be careful on that. Here, the next question is, we have to make sure we distribute before we combine like terms. So this is 3x plus 4x. And again, this is the exact same thing as the question before. I have to distribute the negative to each one of these. So this is minus 4x minus 6. I can't tell you how many times this mistake is made. The 6 has forgotten to change its sign. This negative must go to each one inside the parentheses. Now 3x plus 4x is 7x. 7x minus 4x is 3x minus 6, and that's my answer. 2 more questions, and that's it for 3C. Like I said, 3C is a pretty good thing here. So now, on this next one here, what we need to do is we need to get out the calculator again. You can literally type this whole question in on the TI-30X, the multi-view that I recommend. You literally just type a fraction, type this on top, type this on bottom. It will do it all. Now I will work it out. So I have to do the parentheses first. So it's 10 minus 5 minus 6 squared. Whoops. Sorry, that was terrible. Let me try this again. That was off. 15 minus 5 is 10, so it's 10 minus 6 squared, all over 9 squared plus 3 squared. So on the top, it's really equal to 10 minus 36 over 81 plus 9, which is negative 26 over 90, which reduces to negative 13 over 45. So that would be my answer. And again, you should be able to use your calculator to do this in one step, not do it by hand and do something silly like I just did. This next one here, we have lots of parentheses here, and so really we got to distribute first to get rid of the parentheses. So I have to distribute the 9 to each one of these. So this is 9x plus 45 minus 7. And that is in the first brackets, plus distribute the 4 to each one of these, so it's 4x minus 48 plus 9. Now what's nice about these, this is a positive, and there's nothing written out here, so technically it's a positive 1, isn't it? So if I'm distributing a positive or a positive 1, nothing really changes. I will combine my like terms first here. So it's 9x plus, now 45 minus 7 is 38. And then plus 4x minus 48 plus 9 is minus 39. I combine my like terms. 9x plus 4x is 13x. 38 minus 39 is minus 1. And that is my answer. And that is the end of Unit 3C. It's about 20 minutes, but there's only one part to this, so that works out pretty well.